And those West District seat to the City Council are Bob Litz, incumbent, Dean Karski, and Dan Brooks. The candidates for the at-large seat to the City Council are Vernon Brown, incumbent, and THERESA Stehly. Welcome to the candidate forum for the Northwest and at-large districts for the Sioux Falls City Council. But he's more nervous than I am. So, on that note, we will begin with our opening statements. THERESA?
We are blessed to be in a society that allows us the freedom to choose our leaders. In this election, you have a clear choice between Mr. Brown and myself. I am a woman of action and a strong leader who represents all the citizens. I have proven this by my leadership in organizing and leading the Drake Springs petition drive last year. We wanted to let the citizens decide if that pool would be indoor or outdoor. We were successful in bringing it to a vote by collecting over 5,300 signatures. I have proven my leadership ability by my efforts to save Nelson Field last summer. I encouraged coaches, ball players, parents, even Lyle Smith from the Sioux Empire Baseball Association to come forth and voice their concerns about that park. We wanted to save that beautiful green space in the heart of our city. I have proven my leadership ability by my effort to bring snow gates to our city. Snow gates are a hydraulic device that are attached to a snow plow and keep the snow out of the driveways and the corner sidewalk areas. Bismarck, North Dakota has been using these since 2000. In January, I spent hours speaking to the Public Works Director and found out that they are very efficient. They handle over 8 inches of snow and the citizens love them. I am about standing up for citizens and spending our tax dollars on things that benefit all people in the most efficient manner. I will do the homework. I will work hard to get the best results for our citizens.
Vernon?
You know, behind fatherhood, serving the citizens of Sioux Falls has been one of my greatest privileges, and I thank you for that. 4 years ago, I promised to work on what I call the 3 Ps of government: protection, progress, and parks. Here's how I've delivered. Supported adding 12 police officers in that time. I would have liked to see more, but you can't win them all. Supported adding 14 firefighters plus a new fire station on the west side. Housed chronic homeless people who have mental illnesses. Under progress, funded Lewis and Clark Rural Water for the city of Sioux Falls. Took care of the core area flooding. Built infrastructure for the east side growth. Supported quality of life projects. Under parks, added 100 acres of new parkland for new neighborhoods. Fixed up existing parks. Completed the bike paths. And negotiated an agreement with the zoo board to have them keep running it, saving taxpayers $800,000 a year. And while we're talking about money, in 2006 and 2007, we had budget surpluses at the city. And as fiscal committee chair, I shepherded the balanced budget resolution, which not only requires the mayor to submit a balanced budget, but also keep a minimum year-end reserve of 25%. In 4 short years, our income levels have gone up, our property tax mill levies have gone down, and we've added as many people to Sioux Falls as live in the city of Pierre. That's affordable progress. That's what Sioux Falls is about. Thank you.
What can you bring? We're going to combine some questions. What can you bring to the position that your opponent can't? And what is your greatest strength that will serve you well in this position?
I bring experience and knowledge. I've spent 4 years outlining, I just outlined for you the accomplishments in those 4 years. I bring that experience here. I think my biggest strength is communication. Whenever I'm walking through the community, people feel welcome to come up and talk to me, give me their thoughts on what they want the city to be and what they want it to grow into. And that's one of my favorite parts of the job, to be able to hear the vision and ideas and dreams of other people in this community and what they want it to be. And I've had the communications background to listen, to communicate to people. And I think those are the strengths that I bring to this job.
Thank you.
Some of the strengths that I bring.
Well, I do believe, and I'm not saying that I think Mr. Brown is a good man. I believe I'm more in touch with the citizens. And I proved that last year when I went out for that Drake Springs pool initiative. We didn't want to lose our outdoor pool. And the council, of course, voted for the indoor pool. We went out and got all those signatures, worked very hard, and brought it to a vote and won, which proved that we were more in touch with what the average citizen wanted. Snow gates is another issue, came up in the Argus last week, even with the negativity that Mr. Brown gave in the Argus article about it, which was not accurate, by the way. The poll said that 68% of the people supported it, supported at least trying it. I'm a common sense person. I care about finding solutions for the everyday average citizen, for their lives. I'm a person who puts things into action. I will work hard to make it the best Sioux Falls that we can have for everybody. And I'll stay out there and pound the streets down and connect with people, because the average citizens are hungry for that, for someone who really cares.
Okay, thank you. All right, our next question. What are your top 3 budget priorities? Dean?
My turn? Yeah. Okay. Well, I sat through the CIP meeting last summer and listened to all the things that are being subsidized in our community. I was blown away. First of all, I would try to get that all together in one department so it's easy for citizens to understand what we're spending the sales tax money on. Then we're going to take a look at those things and make sure that they are really getting the best bang for their buck, that we don't have any excess happening. We want to make sure that we're doing the basic necessities in our city the best that we possibly can. And we want to put the brakes on extravagant spending. And that goes back to what Daniel talked about with roads, getting back to the common sense issues that we are providing, like I said, the basic services for the best price. And I don't think enough people ask questions on the council right now about what we're spending on. It's just like rubber stamped through. As I was sitting through these meetings, I was just very concerned that there wasn't more discussion. And it's not just a blank check out there. We do have a lot of debt, and I think people are concerned about that.
Thank you. Vernon, your top budget priorities.
Public safety, water, and streets. Those are the 3 top priorities. You know, 85% of what we do on City Council deals with growth issues. So when you look at those 3 issues, public safety, those are issues we've addressed. You all know where I stand on having more police officers in Sioux Falls. Firefighters we keep up with, because every time we add a fire station, it triggers 14 firefighters to cover that growth. We don't have that same kind of a trigger in police, so that's very important. Water, we prepaid our $70 million for Lewis and Clark, but that doesn't mean that issue is over. As many of you have read and seen in the news, the water Lewis and Clark funding has been zeroed out by President Bush. So we will be revisiting that issue, and we will need the leadership to be able to communicate with our congressional delegation to make sure that we get that funding done. And then finally, streets. The City Council just weeks ago put an extra $4 million into fixing streets and adding new streets. So that's what we'll do.
Okay, thank you. Next question. What will you do to improve public transportation? Teresa.
Well, I spent 2 weekends at the Benson Flea Market, and the topic of the West Side bus service came up. And those people they said, hey, we got route number 10, and it takes you several hours to get from point A to point B. So first of all, we want to look at increasing services to the west side of our city, and that goes for more than just bus service. That goes for snow removal. Those people feel like they're an island out into themselves. I'm a big supporter of paratransit. I think we need to be doing that service for people. And I agree with Daniel that we need to be looking at making it more attractive and looking at the efficiency of the buses that we're using. Maybe we need to downsize, making sure that the size is fitting the need and the people that are actually using them.
Thank you. Vernon?
We are seeing an increase in ridership. In fact, last year, ridership was up 14%, but we are seeing a huge demand for more expanded routes and services. Currently, the Public Transportation Board is looking at that issue and figuring out how to finance it, because it is a very expensive thing to do bus service, but very necessary, especially when you look at gas prices right now. And in large part, that's what was driving up public transportation last year. So we are working on those plans, figuring out how to expand it and to finance it responsibly.
provides funds to worthwhile charities like Ronald McDonald House and Southeastern Behavioral Health, etc. Do you agree the city should help these groups?
Well, I'm a strong advocate of tithing in my own life, and I believe you need to give back the gifts that you've been given. And I think as far as that goes into the subsidy area, those things need to be looked at. You do need to be careful that if you're giving to one organization, that you're giving to all of them. So that's something I think that would need to be reviewed. And as I talk with taxpayers, I don't think they're opposed to helping out certain elements of our society. We do need to have a heart. So I would be willing to look at that.
Thank you, Vernon.
There are so many good charities in this community, and it is a tough decision. You know, years ago, the city used to be more flush with cash. With the growth that we see and the demand for increased infrastructure, that isn't there anymore, and we need to re-examine whether we can do all of that charitable work with the city dollars, taxpayer dollars. So I'm in favor of looking at that. But there are some of those on that list that do provide services to the city. For example, the Center for Active Generations. That is among the list. It provides some valuable services to seniors in the community. There are drug and alcohol prevention programs that go on in the school district that the city has a contract for that's in those subsidy categories that's very important. It helps keep crime down in the community and aids our policing effort. So those kind of things, we probably need to go through that list and evaluate what things bring value to the city, because our job as city councilors, first and foremost, is to make sure we fund the daily operations of government. And it's hard to say no to worthwhile charities, but we do need to examine that very closely.
To ensure that the Lewis and Clark project is built on schedule. And Teresa, you get to start.
Well, I think, as my understanding is right now, it's happening in Washington, so we need to be contacting our representatives and senators to make sure that they're working for us, and that's where it's at right now, is the money coming where it needed to come from. Also, my understanding was our city had we had a reserve set aside for that money, and then some of it disappeared. And we need to be watching that too, to make sure we're not losing the reservoir that we have for that when the time comes.
Okay, thank you. Vernon.
If you're talking about construction, we are on schedule with the Lewis and Clark project. There, I believe it's just 11 or 16 miles left of the pipeline that has to be done. The good news is that in Sioux Falls, our wastewater treatment plant can handle the raw water. So once that pipeline is in place, Sioux Falls can start getting that water by 2012, and we will be in good shape. Much of the funding, the prepayment that we've done, is paying to get that pipeline in the ground. Other communities need that wastewater treatment plant that needs to be built, and you've seen some of that information in the news. And that piece of funding is what we're going to have to go back to Congress for and say, let's get this funded. The president made a promise in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, to fund that when he was campaigning here. So we need to make sure the federal government lives up to that. And I'm confident with the help from our congressional delegation, we will find funding for that. But the good news is the project is on schedule. The pipeline will be done, and we can handle that untreated water in our treatment facility.
Do you use time for an elected board of at least 4 members to govern the Sioux Falls Park and Recreation Department?
That has worked very well. Those people are volunteers. They are appointed by the mayor and approved by the council. That group is a dedicated group. There are many, many acres of parkland in Sioux Falls, and they're overseeing all of those. Not to mention the programming. Parks are such an important element to our community. When we build neighborhoods, we have to build parks. We have to make sure we're building neighborhoods, because parks are the place that we as a community gather and meet our neighbors. That's where we figure out who our neighbors are. We begin to build trust amongst each other, and it creates that sense of neighborhood. Think in Sioux Falls. How do you identify where you live? By the park that's closest to you, or by the elementary school that's closest to you. So I really hand it to our Parks Department for the hard work, the volunteer service that they give to this community.
Thank you. Teresa.
Well, I come at this from a whole different angle, because we dealt with these people last year in the pool thing. I believe that there should be park board members from every district in our city. They are appointed by the mayor, they are the mayor's friends, and they are going to do the mayor's bidding. And I don't think that we have enough representation of all the different parks, the north side, the wherever. We need to have that distributed more fairly. The park board is a powerful group of people. They have over a $21 million budget to work with. And we've been going to their meetings. Very few citizens show up there. We would like to have their meetings web streamed so that we can see what's the decisions that are being made by this powerful group of people. And that's part of what I'm about, is bringing citizens into the equation. Let's educate people. Let's let people in our city know what's going on, because there's a spirit of distrust happening. But this park board situation, I encourage you to go to the meetings. It's hard sometimes to know where they're meeting because they move around every month to different parks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next question. Events Center. Are you in favor of it? Where would you put it, have it built, and how would you fund it?
It's to me, isn't it?
It is coming
Okay.
to Dean, yes, you start.
Yes, I'm in favor of an event center. I think we're past due. We built our arena 50 years ago, just about. And by the time we get an event center, it will be 50 years. What will we put in it? Last night I was at an exploratory group meeting and they're presenting their idea. That's one idea. That's not the only idea. I like some of the things they're coming to the table with. How are we going to fund it? Well, there's talk about going to the state and having the state approve all of South Dakota, being able to increase the sales tax. And I said, you know, that's great, but if you try to put a sales tax on food, it's not going to go anywhere. You're going to lose support. Funding it, we got to look for a private corporate citizen, if you will, that, or maybe several that are willing to step up and say, hey, I want to be part of this. We have a great opportunity ahead of us. The communities around us, the bigger towns, we're going to lose out to them if we don't step up and start taking a look at what we can bring. And it's not about football or basketball, but it's about bringing in the big events.
Thank you. Bob?
I'm in favor of the event center, and you know, it's a fluid thing. I read the 2005 report, and that took away a lot of the prejudice and preconceptions that I had about it. That being said, since then, several important changes have been made, several discoveries, several conversations, and a lot of facts have come out. You know, we're talking about the spot that is probably going to make the most sense, everything considering the sales job that we can, the thing that the public will accept is going to be out by the arena, I believe. Partial private funding, but you got to watch out the strings. There's no such thing as free money. And partial public funding is, I believe, is going to be the preferred thing. The going to find out all the facts and educating the public as to what the facts are, and then letting us make up our minds about what we want to do. But I think the education of the facts, because there's a lot of opinions out there, I'm not sure they're all accurate, but education is a big thing for me.
Okay, thank you. Dan?
Yes, I am in favor of the event center, but I want the center to be in the Northwest District, and I also would love the center to be a place where multi things are going on, like an ice rink, a football field, a track. All these things have to be included because we don't want to build a brand new center and say, oh, we forgot something. It has to be planned out, set aside. To pay for this event center, I have looked at cities, and I've been in other cities, and I'm looking at the sky, and I'm seeing large corporation names on them, and I'm saying, are these corporations paying for these facilities that they're able to put their name on and occupy? So I'm saying, and I'm being told, absolutely yes. So I'm saying, let's look at some private money. I don't want this $110 million that they're looking at to be another burden on our taxpayers. I want the event center to be a place where private corporate funding and control of the city, where the city maintains control of it to make sure that it is in line with the quality of life that we expect in Sioux Falls, and at the same time, get exactly what we need for our city to increase our revenue base.
Thank you, Dan. Teresa?
I do not oppose an event center. I have been visiting with many people, and there's lots of different ideas floating around out there. I think we have not involved the citizens in this equation yet. We need to find ways, if I was on the council, I'd say let's find ways to get in touch with the citizens, do some surveys, do phone calling, And I've talked to Randall Beck at the Argus about doing a forum like Ted Koppel used to do on Nightline, where we invite the public to come forward and to speak to us. Not that we're speaking to them and telling them what it's about. We listen to see what our community needs, so we can build something that would suit the most people's needs possible. Also, then we would go out and do some aggressive fundraising, and let's get the private sector to pull the money out of their pockets. Let's sell names on the backs of chairs. We are a very wealthy city, and the more we can get the private citizens to come forth, I think the more we're going to be able to sell this to the voters, which is the last part of the equation. It goes to a public vote.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I support an event center, and the community does as well. I asked citizens to send me back their ideas on what their priorities were in the community, and this is what I got back. And number 2 on the list was an event center. They do support it. Now, what do we need to build? It needs to be a facility that's very flexible. It can't just be a concert hall. It needs to be something with lots of floor space that allows us to use it for all kinds of venues, for concerts, also for large sporting events. And it also needs to be available for trade shows, conventions, because that is what brings the most money into the community, when people stay overnight and spend money on food and souvenirs and shopping and those things. The arena area is probably the best place to do it because there's some cost savings involved there, because you could have one organization run the arena, the convention center, and this new event center, and provide some cost savings in terms of the management. In terms of the funding, I do believe it has to be a public and private sponsorship.
Thank you very much. I think I got everybody this time. Which can it tells you we've had a long winter. What are snow gates? Do you think we should try them in Sioux Falls? Your opinions. And we start this time with Bob.
Well, being in the building industry and having a father-in-law who's a earth contractor, I talked to quite a few people about these, and you know, they're a good idea if you're out on a rural section where you've got a driveway every 1/8 of a mile or 1/10 of a mile or something like that. They work good when it snows, let's say 4 to 6 inches. You start getting over that, you've got some trouble. If you've got ice on the road, you can't tip the blade to scrape the ice off. You go over the top of it. On cul-de-sacs, you are going to build up that snow, take it out of somebody's driveway, and then at the next possible place you got to dump it, and you're going to dump it right by their mailbox, and it'll be a great big clump right there that will reduce visibility. So there are good things about the snow gate in certain places, but overall I'm not certain they're the things Sioux Falls needs.
Okay, thank you. Dan?
Yes, I think this is a good idea. It breaks my heart when I'm out there seeing senior citizens shovel the sidewalk, and not only shoveling it once, but twice. And then shoveling when somebody come back across again, pushing the snow right back up in there. You know, you see it, you say, wow. It's something that we got to try. We can perfect it. We can make sure that we don't break the little spigots at the end of the driveway. We can make sure that maybe the pile near the mailbox can be placed somewhere else. But just to take our citizens and say, all right, we're going to eliminate that extra snow that we're going to push in your driveway, that's something that we have to try. I mean, it's like the ordinance. I was sitting out there the other day at a city council meeting, and the guy was complaining because they sent him a $350 bill because he did not shovel his snow in time. We understand that it's going to trip, but the ordinance is, wow, we didn't even give this gentleman a chance. We just stuck him with a $350 bill. We told him what we wanted him to do. He didn't do it, so he got it.
Thank you. Teresa?
Well, what's amazing to me is that I'm the only person in this room who's talked to anybody from Bismarck about this. And they're the ones who've been using this since 2000 when it was implemented in a petition drive, unless Vernon's called them recently. But the snow gates have been very effective there. They've worked up to 8 inches, Bob, on the snow. The company even says, they've only had 8 inches. The company says they'll work up from 10 to 12 inches. I also called the vice president of the company on Saturday. I said, would you let us have one free to use? It's me against the city. He said, Teresa, we can't give it to you free, but we'll give you a discount. I mean, let's just get them in here and try them and make sure that we got people around to watch and make sure they're not doing it just to throw a wrench in it, doing it effectively. But it sounds to me like we need to go to Bismarck, we need to look at this, we need to do our homework and make sure that we're making decisions based on lots of information. And Kevin Smith told me he had a conversation with somebody from Bismarck in 2002. They've never heard from Sioux Falls.
Okay, thank you. Vernon?
I want to tell you a quick story. I got a call from an 81-year-old woman the other night who asked me about snow gates. And, you know, in leadership, you have to do what's right, not what's popular. There's nothing I would have rather done than tell her that, yep, that'd solve your problems. We've done the research. They don't work. In fact, I read recently in Juneau, Alaska, they quit using them this year because the operator said they break every 6th driveway or so. Bismarck doesn't use them in a snow emergency. That's their policy because they don't work in heavy snow. Their snowgate budget has doubled in the last 2 years. They're a much smaller community than ours. You do the math, it would cost us more than $1 million a year to use snowgates, and they don't work. I would rather, it's an issue of need versus want. Yes, I want them, but they don't work. And furthermore, I would rather take that $1 million a year. In 5 years, that's $5 million. What would that do for our streets budget? That'd be important.
Okay, thank you. Dean?
I have a brother-in-law that lives in Bismarck, and he went and talked to the Bob Stenjum, who's the street department maintenance manager, and also the Senate Majority Leader for North Dakota. He said when they passed that ordinance in Bismarck that they had to increase their budget by 40% for equipment and manpower. They do not work over 6 inches, is what he said. That being said, I wouldn't mind not having to shovel my driveway after it's been plowed with a nice windrow, but I've met my neighbors a lot in the winter when I don't get to see them a lot of times either by having to go out there and shovel snow with them. A lot of questions. 30% of our snow removal is done by contract labor. Do we require them to put snow gates on their equipment? And if we, you know, I'm not against trying them. Hey, let's give it a shot, see if it works. And I've had a lot of people volunteer their driveway for us to try them on too. So if you want to give it a shot, so.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll go to something a little calmer. Downtown has flourished through investment in the arts. What do you see as the city's role in supporting the arts as an engine for economic development? Thank you. Theresa?
Well, the question I've been asking myself this last year, and I'm going to ask it to the audience right now, is what do we expect from our city government? What do we expect from our taxpayer dollars? And I think that we talk about basic necessities that need to be met. Infrastructure, police protection, water, fire. And then you start going into a fine line of entertainment, and that's the area that I would want to look at, because I'm not sure that our city's job is to provide entertainment for people. I think we need to do things in a wise and prudent manner. I'm about fiscal responsibility. And so as the CIP, I looked through things that we're funding in the CIP. I have some questions about some of those things. And I'm not saying they're for certain for the arts, but I would, if I'm elected to the council, I will be looking at things, I will be questioning things, I will do what's best for all the taxpayers.
Okay, thank you. Vernon?
Arts are what sets a community apart. The sculpture walk. It is so fun to drive through downtown Sioux Falls and see what that draws in on any day of the week. You can see people walking around, taking pictures of those sculptures, and that is a very small investment that the city makes. And in return, we also get sculptures given to the city as a result of that. It's a public-private partnership that has served us so well. But it's even bigger than that. Arts is a workforce development issue. We could face an economic crisis in this community if we're not able to attract workers to Sioux Falls to work, especially the young workforce. And when they look at cities across the country, today young people choose where they live before where they decide to work. So it's important that we have public-private partnerships that bring those kind of amenities to a city and attract young people and help develop our workforce here so it's good for the entire economy of Sioux Falls. So it is an economic development issue.
Open government. One is that we have CityLink and the Granicus, the new web streaming, so that you can see city council meetings and these forums, for example. Do you think this could be expanded to include, for example, the Park and Rec Board meetings? And would you be in favor of seeing things like city contracts on a website? In other words, more exposure, right? More, word here. More of an opportunity to see what the city is doing available to the citizens. And Teresa.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's fantastic. I support that. I think the more we can bring openness into what we're doing at the city level, the more trust we're going to have with the public. Because as I mentioned earlier, I think they really feel like they're closed out of the situation at times. And my job, if I was on the council, would be to constantly be keeping it open. Through the swimming pool issue, I've developed a big network of people, and I will constantly be letting those people know what's going on and encouraging them to come to the meetings, watch. We got to get more citizen involvement here because this city belongs to all of us, and we're all important in the equation. So I wholeheartedly support that.
Okay, thank you. Vernon.
I agree. I used to be the reporter on the other side, and I strongly am a big advocate for open government and transparency. I was a huge supporter of the Granicus system. For those of you that don't know what it is, you can go to your computer at any time, day or night, and click on the council agenda. You can click on a very specific one issue if you want and play the video to see exactly what it is that we discussed at those meetings. We are being looked at around the state of South Dakota for the openness we provide in Sioux Falls city government. I sit on the South Dakota Municipal League, and other cities are asking us about this system, and we're sharing it with other governments. We've talked to the school district, we've talked to Minnehaha County, so we're sharing those resources because ultimately it all comes out of the same taxpayer's pocket in this community. So we are leveraging that as much as we can so all governments can be wide open and transparent.
What new taxes or tax increases do you favor for the new term on the city council? Would you be willing to pledge not to vote for any tax or debt increases? Okay, Vernon, yours.
It's not responsible government to make a pledge for no taxes because we never know what's going to come down the pike, what kind of emergencies might happen. And furthermore, it's important that you keep your options open. And we are already limited by state government on what taxes can happen. You have to go through the legislature to get anything more than what we have. And so it's important that you understand the city is already limited very much. We're limited on property taxes, the growth that can happen there, the percentage increase. We're limited to 2 cents on the sales tax. So those are already set and bound. In terms of future taxes, one we may have to look at, I don't think now is the appropriate time, but one we may have to look at is leveling off that second penny sales tax for the infrastructure growth in the city. It's a tax we've been paying until 2004. It's a tax that could be important for helping that infrastructure.
Lowering the sales tax. I don't think, especially on food and on our heat. So I am opposed to raising taxes. I think we need to dig down and look at the books, as Daniel said. I agree with Daniel on so many things. But we need to make sure that we're getting the best bang for our buck. And Mr. Brown just talked about spending $1 million on snow gates, but he didn't have a problem approving $1.5 million for those frills for the library. And it's all about priorities. What are we going to spend our money on? And I think we need to get to Bismarck, by the way, because I talked to the Public Works Director last week, and he told me those snow gates worked very well. So we're getting lots of conflicting secondhand information here. Let's go down there, let's talk to him, let's see him in action.
Thank you. All right, the next question has to do with the removal and relocation of the downtown railroad tracks. Do you think that the city should move forward in 09-10 with this project, knowing that we are short of money for this project? And thank you. Teresa.
And once again, I just agree with what Daniel said, that we need to make sure that this is something that's needed. If we don't have the money for it right now, then it's called needs versus wants, and that's the end of the story.
Okay.
I agree. If we don't have the money, we don't do it. It's that simple. This program, excuse me, is a federally funded program. It was $42 million. If that money is available, there are some reasons to do that downtown. It's a safety issue, especially given that our downtown has become revitalized. There's going to be more traffic there. And you've seen the revitalization of our downtown. So it could become an important factor. And it could be a rare opportunity for us to open up properties downtown and grow our city even more economically. But the bottom line is, if the money isn't there from the federal government, we don't do it.
Tax abatement for developers. Should we adopt a policy whereby the developers pay more of the bill for infrastructure and maintenance, and the city not be saddled with the bill? And
I agree, it's something I would need to study a little bit more to see how that balances out with what they're getting from it, with what they're giving to us. But on that same vein, I do want to talk about roads, because people are talking about the quality of roads that developers are putting in. And I think we need to look at that to make sure that they're using the same standards that we're having in other parts of our city, which I'm not sure what kind of quality that is either. But we're assuming that there's going to be a high level. Someone said to me, why are our roads decaying so fast? Well, is it how they're being built? It's a good question to dig into and find out, are they using substandard materials or what's going on? I'll tell you one thing, I will do the homework, and people who know me know I dig down to the bottom of the barrel. So we'll find out what's going on and make it right.
okay, thank you. Vernon?
Tax abatements are an economic development issue. You know, many cities, many states give taxpayer cash out to businesses coming into a community or businesses expanding the community. We don't do that in Sioux Falls. We act more responsibly, and we look at very closely. We use these very prudently and look at this as an economic tool. Our tool chest is not very big in what we can offer businesses wanting to come to our community, because we don't hand out cash. What we do is give tax incentives. Tax abatements is one of those pieces of legislation that we have as the City Council in order to do that. So it's a way for us to attract businesses and attract better jobs to the community. We use it very prudently, and it's a good way for us to make sure that we are growing our economic base.
Due to attract business to Sioux Falls, and Sioux Falls is the successful community we enjoy because of visionary leaders. Where would you rank yourself in being a visionary to make our move our community forward? And I'll read that again. Sioux Falls is the successful community we enjoy because of visionary leaders. Where would you rank yourself in being a visionary to move our community forward? And combining in that, what can you as a council member do to attract business to Sioux Falls? And Dan?
I would rank myself as 9.5. The vision that I would build for them: safe streets, wonderful roads, wonderful playgrounds, parks, a place where children can come and grow and develop, learn, get a good education, excellent high schools, grammar schools, every opportunity that one would want in this place. Coming from a large city like New York City, Buffalo, New York, coming to a place like Sioux Falls, I mean, it's a wonderful community. A community place where you can knock on your next door neighbor and say, can I actually borrow a couple of sugar? Where you can call your actual official government and say, hey, council member, I would like to meet with you and talk to you and discuss some business or some activities that's going on. I mean, it's a wonderful place. And this is the vision that I would build for them. This is the vision that I would interpret to them so that they will understand how wonderful this community is. Yes, we're a farm community that growed beyond farming. Thank you.
Well, my vision for the city is that we work to make the best use of our resources possible. And I want to propose something called a Citizen Appreciation Day. We have the zoo, we have the pavilion, and we have the Arts and Science Center at the pavilion, Great Bear, and the pavilion, the Arts and Science Center. Those are all subsidized by taxpayer dollars. I propose that 4 times a year we open those things up for free and let people come in. We call it Citizen Appreciation Day. Using our resources to benefit everybody. This would go so far to bring people to the table and make them feel like they're a part of our community. I'm visionary as I would think about using our resources, as I said before, and bringing everybody into it, because I believe it's citizens first.
Thank you. Vernon?
I'm a practical visionary, and I think I've demonstrated over the last 4 years that we do that through affordable progress. I told you in the beginning remarks that I made that we've added a population base the size the city of Pierre to this city, and we have done that with no tax increases. In fact, in the sales tax, it was decreased. We've done that with no tax increases, and we've done it without truly interrupting any of our lives. We had 3,500 people a year to Sioux Falls. That's like adding the city of Canton. And we do it seamlessly because city government works, because the city council is making policy decisions that make it work. Leadership takes vision, and I think I've demonstrated that very well. And I do it in my job every day at SDN Communications. One of the first things a new business looks for when they're coming to Sioux Falls is what kind of telecommunications and broadband services are available. I was at the table when ADP came to Sioux Falls to visit with us to see if this was a community for them. I'm at the community, at the table, anytime a new business looks at Sioux Falls.
Thank you, Vernon.
When I think of a-
Dan?
Yes, when you consider voting for Daniel Brooks, you are actually putting your voice on the city council, and that's what's important to me. Going out into the community, knowing the community, and making sure that I'm absolutely representing the community. Your voice will be on the council, and that is what I'm after. Thank you.
Bob?
I'd like to thank my 2 opponents from the Northwest here for stepping up and making me bring my better game here tonight. I'd like to have it like Debbie Hoffman did with nobody to run, but that's not the case here tonight, so thank you. And I also will say that they've been 2 gentlemen throughout this campaign, and I really appreciate that. The thing that I'm going to bring to the table here, it kind of like goes back to where we were at in the beginning, is the 2 years experience that I do have on the council. You've had opportunity to see me, you've had opportunity to hear me, and some of you have called me and gotten a response. I'd also like to talk about my background in the building and development industry here in Sioux Falls. About 80% of our business that comes across these chambers here involves development, infrastructure, building, things along those lines. Those are things that fascinate me. I've been immersed in it for the last 20 years, and I'm not saying that you have to have that to be a successful council candidate or a successful council person, but I bring that to the table. It's nuts and bolts, folks. It's not very sexy, but when you dig a hole in the middle of the street, I can look in there and tell you what all those pipes are. I can tell you how thick and wide a highway is. I can tell you how the intersections are set up for the lights, things like that. Now, does everybody need to know it? No, I've already told you that, but that's what I bring. Thank you.
Thank you. Dean?
Yes, I believe the role of a city councilor is to lead our city into a greater future. That future obviously will include an ever-growing city, and we're going to face economic and social challenges that will require our leadership to start preparing for it now. I have no hidden agenda. My goal as a city councilor will be to bring an open form of communication to our government. I plan on asking a lot of questions and then work to find the solution that will benefit our community. And it doesn't matter if it's police or snow gates. Let's ask the questions. Let's study it or find out what it needs to be done. I look forward to taking a role as a leader in our community and look forward to 2 weeks from today, April 8th.
Okay. Thank you. Vernon?
I want to thank the League of Women Voters. Doris, you did a great job tonight. Thank you very much. And the Chamber of Commerce for this event. I also want to thank Ms. Stehly because people deserve a choice. And I appreciate her getting out there in front and doing this because it is a risk when you put yourself out there. I also want to publicly thank my family. My wife, Tammy, who's here tonight, is always here for me. And my daughter, Emma, who better be going to bed about now. Every day when I get up and I look at my daughter, I know why I serve. I want to make sure that her generation has a choice to live and work here. I grew up in a small town where there wasn't a choice. There were no jobs, no opportunities. I don't want that to happen to my daughter's generation here. And that takes a balance. It takes building infrastructure, building homes, building parks, and building neighborhoods. It is a balancing act. My accomplishments not only take care of today's citizens, all of us sitting here, but they also prepare us for the next 50 years. I've helped take care of the water, the east side growth, flood control for the center of the city, the quality of life issues that will set this community apart from its competitors. I look forward to serving. I humbly ask for your vote on April 8th. Thank you.
Thank you, Vernon. Teresa?
I believe that a progressive city is one that does not allow its streets to decay or permit basic services like free tree trimming in the boulevard to disappear. A progressive city works to make all city facilities, like the zoo, the pavilion, and Great Bear, accessible to all citizens, no matter what their income level. And that my proposal of Citizen Appreciation Day will make that happen. I believe that a progressive city looks for ways to serve its citizens in the most efficient, effective way, providing user-friendly services like snow gates. I have proven my commitment to serve the people in this city by my actions as a concerned citizen. I will bring the same enthusiasm and spirit of encouragement for the public involvement with me to the council as I work for common sense in spending and, most importantly, putting the citizens first.
Thank you, and I'd like to thank all of the candidates for their participation this evening. And mostly on behalf of the Chamber, the City, and the League of Women Voters Sioux Falls, I'd like to thank you, the audience, for coming this evening. This has been a wonderful turnout. We had some good questions. I don't know how many are listening or watching out there, and to all of you, but thanks for participating in the process, which is the most important part of all.
Has carried over to the city council election. The only race open to all voters in the city in 2 weeks pits current council member Vernon Brown against THERESA Stehly. Stehly helped lead efforts to overturn the decision to build an indoor pool to replace Drake Springs. Night Beat reporter Ben Dunsmore has more on the debate between the candidates on the issues facing the city.
THERESA Stehly and Vernon Brown sat on opposite sides of the indoor and outdoor pool debate. But tonight, the only two candidates for the at-large city council seat sat side by side answering questions from the crowd.
In 4 short years, our income levels have gone up, our property tax mill levies have gone down, and we've added as many people to Sioux Falls as live in the city of Pierre.
I am a woman of action and a strong leader who represents all the citizens. I have proven this by my leadership in organizing and leading the Drake Springs petition drive last year.
The candidates touched on several other important issues, like the future of the Lewis and Clark Water Project, which had its funding cut out of President Bush's 2009 budget.
Right now, it's happening in Washington, so we need to be contacting our representatives and senators to make sure that they're working for us.
And I'm confident with the help from our congressional delegation, we will find funding for that. But the good news is the project is on schedule, the pipeline will be done, and we can handle that untreated water in our treatment facility.
And they talked about a multi-million-dollar event center that the council will likely have to vote on in the upcoming year.
I do not oppose an event center. I have been visiting with many people, and there's lots of different ideas floating around out there. I think we have not involved the citizens in this equation yet.
It needs to be a facility that's very flexible. It can't just be a concert hall. It needs to be something with lots of floor space that allows us to use it for all kinds of venues, for concerts, also for large sporting events.
Now 9 other candidates are running for 3 council seats in specific districts. Only those voters in those parts of the city will be able to vote for those council seats. To see who's running.
Now, this is still up for discussion, but if public transportation fees go up in Sioux Falls, paratransit riders would pay the highest rate increase. Transit officials have proposed raising rates across the board. People who use the paratransit service now pay $2 per ride, but that could soon change.
And if they increase that to $3 each way or $6 for a round trip, somebody on a low fixed income, that's going to be a burden to them.
The Public Transit Advisory Board will look at the issue again at its next meeting in April. The City Council would have to approve the proposal before it would take effect.
March Madness is in.